With the trade deadline fast approaching, and with you guys really enjoying my last video on this, I think it's time I make a part 2. Here are 4 more blockbuster trades I think have a reasonably high chance of happening this season, with reasoning behind them. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe for more NBA content, but with that being said, let's get right into this top 4.
Lucas.
Actually, before we start, I have some honourable mentions. The first is CJ McCollum, as after the Blazers' rough start, they bounced back and made the playoff picture, but have yet again struggled these last few games. The team's chemistry looks to be lacking, and a trade seems pretty imminent. To me personally, CJ would be the first to go, but I couldn't really find any realistic deals for him, that's why he's an honourable mention and did not make the list. The next is Al Horford. He recently complained about his role in the offense on Philadelphia and has seemed disgruntled for pretty much the entire season, doing a lot of complaining in interviews too. He's the same as CJ McCollum, as I really couldn't find any trade suitors for him at this point, but I think he will become more of a hot topic as we approach the trade deadline. Now with those out of the way, let's for real get right into this top 4. Number 4. Andre Iguodala. Andre Iguodala has been a solid veteran in the NBA for many years, helping the Warriors accomplish multiple titles during the dynasty and taking home Finals MVP in one of them. However, due to the Warriors signing D'Angelo Russell this offseason, they needed to free up a bunch of cap space, and that meant letting go of vets like Andre Iguodala. Now he's stuck on Memphis and is receiving no playing time whatsoever, and the Grizzlies won't release him as they want something in return. So, who wants to trade for Iggy? Well, there are really only 2 teams that have been in rumours for acquiring Andre Iguodala, and one of them is pretty much out of the hunt now. It's the Lakers and Clippers, and the Clippers are the only team I realistically see picking him up at this point. So, what would a trade look like for Iguodala between Memphis and LAC? The Clippers would get Andre Iguodala, and the Memphis Grizzlies get back Maurice Harkless and Jerome Robinson, as well as a couple of draft picks. This is a good deal for the Clippers for obvious reasons. They get extra depth to help push them past other title contenders. As we should know, Andre Iguodala can still contribute at a high level, and that extra boost off the bench and experience there will be a big help for the Clippers come playoff time. For Memphis, this deal should be a no-brainer. Mo Harkless is on an expiring contract, and Jerome Robinson is a young talent to add to the depth in their rebuild. The biggest sweetener in this deal for them though are the trade picks, because the other LA team can't offer them that. Overall, this trade makes a lot of sense for both teams, and no one else is really interested in Iguodala right now, so if Memphis really want to let him go but want something back, starting talks with the Clippers is the way to go. Number 3 and number 2. KarlAnthony Towns. KarlAnthony Towns seems like a pretty strange player to have on this list, but with a couple reports coming out stating that teams are monitoring Cat's availability due to them believing he's unhappy in Minnesota, I think it's only right to talk about him today. 2 teams have shown interest in him so far, the Golden State Warriors and the New York Knicks, and I have some trade ideas for both of them involving KarlAnthony Towns. Let's go with the Warriors first. This is what the trade would look like. The Warriors receive KarlAnthony Towns, and the Wolves get back D'Angelo Russell, Eric Pascal, and Alec Burks, as well as some draft picks, including the Warriors' first rounder for this year's draft. As you can see, the Warriors would need to trade D'Angelo Russell in order to make this trade work. Unfortunately for Towns, that's probably the reason why he'd like to go to Golden State, but the NBA is a business, and I don't think the Warriors are planning on trading Steph or Clay anytime soon. One major positive out of this trade though for the Warriors is when they get Towns, the Warriors finally get something they've lacked during the dynasty, a star big man. Obviously, they haven't really needed one, but it's always been their biggest weakness. Now with Towns, they get one, and losing D'Lo shouldn't hurt too much. This season is already down the drain, and I don't think they need any more guards, to be fair. Him being replaced with Towns is much better and fits the system better in my eyes. Towns will work in Golden State too. He's been shooting a high efficiency from downtown this season on many attempts per game. So overall, I really like this deal for Golden State, even if it does mean losing D'Angelo Russell. For Minnesota, D'Angelo Russell is a young star who can pair it with Wiggins to make a formidable backcourt. Eric Pascal is one of the top Rookie of the Year candidates and is shown to be a special player, potentially a future All-Star, and with Towns out of the picture in Minnesota, you can fully expect him to receive the same amount of minutes and usage here in Minnesota. Plus, Minnie gets some draft picks to sweeten the deal overall. Overall, I really do like this deal for Golden State, even though it's quite unlikely. I only believe this will happen if Towns requests a trade too, because I don't really think that Minnesota is that eager to get rid of him. However, with these reports coming out, there is still a chance a deal happens involving Towns by the trade deadline. That leads me to my second deal. As I mentioned before, the Knicks are also looking to acquire Towns. However, I find that even more unlikely to happen than the Golden State one, so I don't actually have a trade for them. But with that said though, there is another team I believe that could use Towns if he is made available for trade, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. With Brooklyn struggling with Kyrie, the extra star power could help propel them into contention, particularly when looking at next season in 2021. So, what would a deal look like between Minnesota and Brooklyn in relation to KarlAnthony Towns? The Minnesota Timberwolves receive Spencer Dinwiddie, Caris LeVert, Jarrett Allen, Joe Harris, and a 2020 first round pick, and Brooklyn gets KarlAnthony Towns. By making this trade, the Nets would be pretty much giving up on the 2019-20 season. However, this would be a fantastic move if everything works out for next season, and in 2021, the Nets would most likely be the team to beat, with three guys capable of scoring over 25 points per game. Brooklyn's depth would take a hit, but that may not matter in the end. Plus, the Nets would still have Taurean Prince, DeAndre Jordan, and Garrett Temple under contract for next season, and plenty of veterans would likely jump on board for the chance at a championship. For the Wolves, this trade would give them franchise pieces to build around with Dinwiddie, who dominated as a starter in Brooklyn, Jarrett Allen, an elite defensive big man who can become a cost-efficient replacement of KarlAnthony Towns, as well as Caris LeVert too. Joe Harris adds shooting, and what could go wrong with a first-round pick? Overall, this is a fantastic trade for both sides. Brooklyn becomes one of the scariest teams in the league with this deal, as they have a big three no other side can say they have, as well as having a decent bench to back them up with it. Minnesota don't necessarily need to start a rebuild after the trade too, as the pieces they get back will help them immediately and potentially push them into the playoffs this season or make them legit playoff contenders for the next. After looking at both trades, I really like both of them, and to me, the most likely one to happen is the Brooklyn one if they were to go down at all. It really depends on what Minnesota want. If they want some older guys who can make the team playoff contenders for the next few seasons, the Brooklyn deal is probably the best option. If they want to get a certified young star with a high ceiling, but also potentially be stuck in a rebuild for a couple more seasons as the young guys develop, go with the Golden State trade, as they'd likely get a high draft pick in this year's draft too. Again, both deals are a bit unlikely, I know that, so don't flame me in the comments here. However, they both do have some merit to them for sure, and shouldn't be counted out as unrealistic, because we know just how amazing the Warriors front office can be in times like this. Number 1. Dewayne Dedmon. One player who has requested a trade this season is Dewayne Dedmon. I originally didn't really want to put him in this video as he isn't exactly a star, but since I couldn't really find any realistic-ish deals involving Al Horford or CJ McCollum, I decided to add him in here for you guys. His lack of play after signing a big contract in Sacramento has led to displeasure and has led to him demanding a trade out. In my eyes, his best trade suitor would be the Boston Celtics, and this is what a deal would look like for him. The Boston Celtics get Dewayne Dedmon for Enes Kanter, Carson Edwards, and Grant Williams, as well as a first rounder. This is a great deal for Boston. They don't really need another scorer, just a solid big man who can protect the paint. Dedmon would be starting in Boston in my eyes too, which is exactly what he wants. One thing that Dedmon can do really well is stretch the floor and shoot the 3-ball well, which will suit Boston perfectly. He isn't really required to do much on offense. He's mainly a defensive piece, but he isn't a liability at all on offense, so if he's given shots, he can take them with confidence. He's also an upgrade over Enes Kanter, who, to be honest, can be a liability on offense sometimes. For the Kings, they get some young pieces and draft picks, as well as Kanter, a solid big man who is needed in this deal for salary reasons. Overall, it isn't a mind-blowing deal for them, but it's a good one, and I think they'll be happy to get something out of Dedmon, who they haven't been using anyway. Overall, Dedmon improves Boston's roster in my eyes and is an extremely helpful piece to any contender, thanks to his great defense and ability to stretch the floor. I believe Boston will utilize him well, and the trade makes a lot of sense for them. The Kings get enough in return for it to be a good deal for them, and considering they don't use Dedmon, it would be good to get rid of his large salary they offered him in the off-season. And that will conclude the top 4. Which trade that I mentioned is most likely to happen to you? Are any of them too crazy? Do you have any trade ideas that I missed? Let me know your thoughts on these trades below, down in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe, but with that being said, I am out. Peace.